In this video, we're going to solve 2003 AP Calculus AB FRQ question Form B. So it says a tank contains 125 gallons of heating oil at time t equals 0. During the time interval 0 is less than or equal to t, which is less than or equal to 12 hours. Heating oil is pumped into the tank at the rate of this h of t. So let me write down pumped in. And this is a rate pumped in. And this is the rate removed down here, and it's at the same time interval. That's the rate. So part A says, how many gallons of heating oil are pumped into the tank during the interval 0 is less than t, which is less than or equal to 12. Okay, one thing that I want to point out is this 125 is going to be important, but not for part A, for the other parts. If it asks how much oil is there. So for part A, if you want to know how many gallons of oil are pumped in, you would just do the integral of the rate, 0 to 12. Now you would do 2 plus 10, 1 plus ln of t plus 1 dt, and you would use your calculator. And when I used mine, I got 70.5709. One thing that I want to point out is there's a lot of parentheses that you're going to need. You're going to need a parentheses here for the 10, showing that it's going to be divisible with this. Then you're going to need a parentheses there. Yeah, it took me a minute or two. I still was able to finish within the 15 minutes. So AP Calc, they want 3 decimal places, so 70.571 gallons of oil are pumped in 12 hours. Okay, part B says, is the level of the heating oil in the tank rising or falling at time t equals 6? Give a reason for your answer. So now, if you want to know if it's rising or falling, you want to use the rates. So you would use h of 6 minus r of 6 and see what you get. So when I solved it, I got approximately negative 2.92419, which is negative 2.924. So the level of oil is falling at t equals 6 hours. Okay, part C says how many gallons of oil are in the tank at time t equals 12 hours. Okay, so if we want to know how many gallons there are, now we have to use that 125 because it started with 125. So you'd write 125 plus the integral of the two rates. So you would do 0, 12, h of t dt, well, h of t minus r of t dt. You want to subtract the rates. And now when you do this, I got approximately 122.026 gallons of oil. Okay, part D. Okay, part D, at what time t for 0 is less than or equal to t, which is less than or equal to 12, is the volume of the heating oil in the tank the least? Show the analysis that leads to your conclusion. So part D, we have to test endpoints. So the first one is, we'll use what's above, we'll just write it. And that was 122.026. Now the other one that we need to test is at time 0, but we know that's not going to be it. So now we do H of t minus R of t dt, and that equals 125. That's definitely not it. So now we're going to have to use a solve button and see where they equal one another or where they equal 0. So we would need to solve 2 plus 10, 1 plus ln of t plus 1 minus the 12 sine t squared over 47. Where does that equal 0? Well, that equals 0 at two places. 4.790 and also 11.318. You could probably graph it, and when you graph it and you subtract both functions at the same time, the part that's, and I'm just saying if you do h of t, not the integral, and r of t, and the part below the x-axis, that means it's decreasing, and the part above the x-axis shows it's increasing, and you would just have to look where it equals 0, and it would give you these 2 points. And it actually shows that this part's increasing, and this part's decreasing. Now let's say you just used the calculator and you solved and you didn't do that, then you would have to solve it analytically, which I kind of recommend using the graph and make your life easier, everybody's life easier. So now, if you did it doing it the other way, the hard way, you would do 125 plus 0 to 4.790, and now you do h of t minus r of t dt, and when you solve this, you actually get 149.408 gallons of oil. So it's definitely not it, and that's what I was trying to tell you. If you use a graph, you would save time. But to be quite honest, since you already did part C, plugging in those numbers on your TI-89 is not that difficult. And now the last point that we need to test is the 11.318. And when you do this, you get h of t minus r of t dt, and that gives you approximately 120.026 gallons of oil. So now I would say 11.318 is the time with the least amount of oil. The least, let me just move it, least, with the least amount of oil. And I hope this video helped.